If you're a facilities manager at a university, you know students rely on the cafeteria for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the occasional late-night snack. So when a dishwasher breaks down and dirty plates pile up, the mess hall can turn messy in the blink of an eye. Enter Grainger. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast delivery, the product you need now is never far away. So you can turn that dishwasher back into a lean, clean washing machine. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. You got a belly up to the bar. We've kept your seat, and it's great to see you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and even you back. Blaine is going to be your bartender tonight. He pours with the best stuff. And the lava lamp is, in fact, lighted to my left, your right. The Ridley Scott commemorative alien lamp because it creates such odd forms. Now, I mentioned this because if you're listening right now, you're listening on shrmedia.com right through your ossicles. But if you want to watch the show, you can go to the SHR Media Facebook page. You go on your favorite search engine, quick like a bunny, type in SHR Media, Facebook, bada boom, bada bing, bada Facebook, bada SHR, and there you will be, because I am live in all my splendiferous glory right here, right now. Oh, one thing that I've done, this is, oh my God, this is a 29-tab night. And the one thing that I have not done is I have not gone into SHR to get into chat. And that's what I'm going to do right now. Okay, Spreaker shows I'm live. Fabulous. And the chat room, welcome to Mike. Good to see you there. The chat room is up and running. Everything else is up and running. With luck. Crossed fingers, crossed eyes, toes, and a few other accoutrements. Dan Butcher is going to be on tonight. And I very much hope that happens because Tuesday, well, number one, I was promoting the heck out of Dan being on tonight, and I really would like to talk to him because, like I said, on Tuesday, Dan was very busy. He was covering a lot of stuff happening in Texas. Texas had some of its primaries, some very serious primaries. And that's the place where everyone said, oh, the Democrats are saying the blue wave is going to cascade over everything. Not exactly. Because the Democrats were swearing that they were going to get this instead. They were just going to roller skate over everyone, right?
That was easy.
Except, well, did they? I guess we'll have to find out from Dan Butcher. A lot of things happened earlier this week. A lot of things happened today. Many of these things are unreported by the American media maggots. If Dan does not show up, oh my God, do I have stories and some interesting little tidbits. Happy stories? Well, I think I've got a fairly happy story. Let's start off with this one, which I think you may know about, but I'm going to crow about it all over again.
It's time for happy stories and good times.
As it always is.
Wild if the meeting actually ends up going forward.
Well, look, I think that is actually...
Wrong tidbit. This is the wrong bite, I should say. We had a federal judge that ruled against the challenge to the Trump border wall recently. And this is something that we were not expecting at all, that I don't think anybody was really expecting. And Fox News happened to respond to it. I hadn't seen this one coming because so many of the various courts, district courts in the United States, have ruled against Trump.
The irony here is the judge hearing the case, Gonzalo Curiel,
here we
the
go.
president criticized for his Mexican heritage in the Trump University case, and now he holds the president's signature campaign promise in his hands. So the question here today is this: does the federal government have the authority to build a fence without environmental or judicial review? Twice Congress has said yes. Homeland Security has broad powers to waive or override, say, the Endangered Species Act and other environmental rules to build a barrier to secure the border from illegal immigration.
If you have a situation where our nation's security and integrity is at stake, we're not going to require you to comply with all of the environmental laws and procedures that would apply to a garden variety construction project.
Right, because it's not a garden variety construction project. But this is a good thing because a federal judge just said and ruled against an environmental challenge to President Trump's border wall, delivering a win to the Trump administration. And you know what? I'm going to stop right here because we have calling in Mr. Dan Butcher. And so I want to welcome, no prologue, no nothing. We're just going to jump right in because I suspect this may be an action-packed segment. So welcome, Dan Butcher, calling in all the way from lovely Texas. How are you, sir, this evening?
I'm doing great, BZ. I do apologize for my tardiness tonight. I had, I was going to use my new mic and all the new setup and everything, Skype in, and then Skype decides to crap out on me. So we're going the old-fashioned route here.
It's like I maybe should send you the T-shirt that I bought for Sackhead's Clint that he wears from time to time because it's his favorite phrase. And on that black T-shirt it says, fucking technology.
Yeah, well, in this case, it is the freaking technology. It wasn't me. I'm not quite sure what was going on with that. But anyway, here we are.
Outstanding. So what you're saying then is, if I can dig a little inside baseball here just for a second, are you building a new studio, sir?
No. We're just playing with some new stuff. Man, I'll tell you what, we had a lot of fun on election night. We actually went out and about and covering our local elections here. We went to several watch parties and reported live from the watch parties. So I have a new setup that I got. That's a portable setup with the mics and the camera and stuff like that. It was really great. Now we had a little bit of lighting issues, but when you're out and about and you can't control everything, that's one thing. But everything else worked perfectly, and that was kind of the setup I was using tonight. I was using the same setup, and normally it would run straight through my computer to broadcast and do whatever. But to do this, you have to call it through Skype. So something was wrong with Skype, not on my end. But no, we're just playing with a lot of new things as we continue to expand the way we bring news to people. I mean, it's a never-changing business right now, an ever-changing business, and so you have to experiment with things, be willing to try new things. Some of them work, some of them don't, and that's where we're at right now. If you visit our website, I think we cover the broad spectrum. From the written word to video to to internet radio broadcasting, internet TV broadcasting, you name it, we're covering it. We do that in our news coverage. We cover with written, with video. We try to bring just a little bit of everything so that we cover the news properly. And when you do that, it allows you to, let's be honest, it allows you to do things that a lot of other media outlets are unwilling to do, can't do, something like that. So our readers and listeners and viewers tend to appreciate it. So that's what we do. Like I said, some things work and some things don't. The failures are very obvious because it usually happens when you're trying to do an important story
right,
or something like
live.
that.
Exactly. It happens when it's one of the most critical moments you could possibly have. And then, of course,
exactly.
the little fairy comes in and pisses on your flintlock, and everything turns to crap. Just what you don't want.
Yeah.
Dan,
let me give you an example real quick of how important this was. Because we were the only media outlet in our regional market here that was doing exit polling. And we were on the spot. And I mean, we could live broadcast. We could immediate numbers. And so with our polling data that we were doing from the exit polling and different things like that, we got an idea of the voters' mood early on in the evening. And I'm going to tell you what, our numbers were dead on all night long in the elections. We picked every election right. We picked every runoff right, and our numbers were right on with what the final numbers ended up being with the Secretary of State here in the state of Texas. So we were very proud of our coverage because we were just dead on all night long. And was it a fluke? I don't think so, because we were actually on the ground. We were reporting. We were getting our hands dirty, talking to people, and talking to the candidates. So we had a good idea of what was going on. And we had a really, really outstanding night of election coverage.
I have so many questions for you tonight, Dan. I almost don't know where to start. And last Tuesday, I asked you to be on last Tuesday, and I hadn't even cogitated about the Texas primaries and how that was going to affect things. And you said, dude, I'm going to be hopping like a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest. That's going to be me on Tuesday. So I finally realized, oh, well, yeah, okay, it's Texas. That's what's going to happen. But beyond that, there were a lot of things that were underreported or misreported or completely avoided in terms of the rest of the stuff. Now, make no mistake, I definitely want to get to what happened in Texas for any number of reasons that I'm sure you'd love to extol, and I'm definitely going to go there. But before we do that, what I'd like to do is weigh in on some of the things some of the really, for God's sakes, the big-ticket items that occurred recently. I just started with this story, as a matter of fact, about a federal judge who just recently ruled against an environmental challenge to President Trump's border wall, and he actually ended up delivering a win to the Trump administration in a decision that allows construction plans on that border wall to move ahead. It was a 101-page ruling by a guy named Judge Gonzalo Curiel, who, oddly enough, was the same guy that Trump kind of excoriated a bit in one of Trump's cases. And in this instance, he came across for Trump because essentially what happened is the state of California and others, in terms of the environment, sued, saying that the great horned toad and various other little beasties, sidewinders and whatnot, that creep and crawl and slither in the desert would be horribly affected by the presence of a border wall. How can you possibly do that? You guys are so evil. And the judge said, no, that's not going to play today. So that was a big win. Then the other thing that staggered me today, and I really would like your input on this, is South Korea seems to have managed somehow to negotiate a sit-down between Kim Jong-un of North Korea and President Trump here in the U.S. Now, the meeting is not going to take place in the U.S. because I'm sure Kim Jong-un would think that the moment he sat down in D.C. and got out of his plane that he'd be clapped in chains or assassinated on the spot, so that's not going to happen. But they're saying that it may happen in May. And a couple of first things that came to my mind was, number one, I didn't see this coming. This really came out of the blue. And number two is, man, did I have some ideas as to why this is occurring now. And your thoughts, Dan Butcher.
Well, let me start with the court case. Isn't it absolutely amazing when a judge looks at all of the evidence, actually follows the rule of law,
yes.
uses a little bit of reason and common sense, and here's the key phrase, does not attempt to legislate from the bench, does not try to be a social justice warrior or a green activist or anything like that from the bench. Actually looks at the facts. I mean, even liberal judges, could hit one occasionally. They're not going to, they might bat, 100, but occasionally they're going to hit one, and occasionally they're going to hit one out of the ballpark like a National League pitcher will do. But this is more like an American League pitcher hitting a home run, to be honest with you. But occasionally this happens, and that's what happened in this case. The judge, this was such an outlandish, case to begin with, that even the craziest of liberal judges would look at this and go, okay, this is just too nuts for me. But in this case, the judge actually sat down, looked at the arguments from both sides, and said, hey, you know what? The Trump administration's in the right here. This is not going to affect the environment one bit, and so it was nice to see that happen. Now, here is going back to the possible talks with North Korea. There is one thing that all of these talks hinge on, and the Trump administration has been very, very forward in saying that all talks, any talks with North Korea would have to, be honest, the ultimate goal would be the denuclearization of North Korea.
Exactly.
Now, here's the astonishing thing.
Bingo.
And people, let's face it, the president of South Korea, Moon, he took a lot of heat for how buddy-buddy and cozy he was being with North Korean officials at the Olympics. Well, you know what? Maybe the South Korean president knew a few things that we did not know, because it looks like the type of diplomacy that he has been working on, the little thing that the North Koreans have said is, you know what? We are open to talking about denuclearization, but there's different things that we have to negotiate to make that happen. And so, but just the fact that they said that they are willing to do that, that's a lot different tone than what you've heard from them in the past. You have to remember, North Korea has been infamous for, throwing things out there so that they can get sanctions relieved, or they can get money released, or they can get stuff shipped into the country that they desperately need. Such as food, clothing, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So
essentials,
So anyway, fuel, oil is another thing that they need. But it's a different tone this time. The fact that they've actually used a lot of the same phrasing and same talk that the Trump administration is using. Yes, we're open to the idea of discussing denuclearization of our country, of our armed forces. Buddy, that's a step forward 10 years in diplomacy, quite honestly. And it's been a tough love approach by the Trump administration, kind of slapping Kim down a little bit and saying this is the way it's going to be or else, and being direct. And that's the type of stuff that the North Korean military leaders kind of ironically respect. They respect that tough talk. Just like Islamic terrorists. if you try to baby them and give them everything they want, they disrespect you. But if you talk tough with them and you act tough with them, well, all of a sudden, number one, they turn around and haul ass because they're chicken shits. But then they do have a respect for you because they know, hey, you know what? They're willing to bomb the hell out of us and kill us before we have a chance to strap a bomb to ourselves and claim our virgins. And we don't want that to happen, So sometimes a tough approach is the approach that is respected. And certainly that has been the case in dealing with North Korea. So the fact that they're open to that they've even mentioned this, and they're not saying, we're going to test this week, we're going to bomb the United States, we're going to kill all Americans. So this time they're like, hey, you know what? We're open to talking about denuclearization with the United States and actually mentioning the United States by name. So that's people look at that and say, well, but you have to understand, with the way the relationships have been over the years, this is a major development, 10 years ahead in diplomacy.
Well, it is on a number of levels. And the other thing is the North Koreans believe, and this is one thing that we do not factor into our equations, the North Koreans believe that he is a deity. But apparently he's a deity who may, in fact, have some advisors that are telling him things he may not want to hear, but some things that he needs to hear. Now, there was a great book that was written by a guy named Lee Smith about the Middle East version of Islam. It was called The Strong Horse. Islam, as it's practiced in the Middle East, values strength. Many dictators, like North Korea, value strength. Let me ask you, Dan Butcher, do you think Barack Hussein Obama could have been the one applying sufficient pressure, or even George Bush, or certainly Bill Clinton? Do you think any of those individuals could possibly have pushed and applied the pressure that Donald Trump did? I submit to you, sir, and to everyone listening, one of the primary reasons North Korea is coming to the table is precisely because it's Donald John Trump, the guy with the dead orange cat on his head, and they truly do not know whether to shit or go blind in terms of dealing with him because he's such a cipher. Could you get anything like this out of Obama or Bush or Clinton? I don't think so.
I think not, and here's why. Donald Trump has kind of taken. It's like he's pulled out in some cases. Now, there's a lot of you can criticize. There's a lot of things. Of course, Donald Trump is reaching across the aisle to Democrats. He's trying to be bipartisan on stuff. That's no surprise to us that have followed Donald Trump over the years. Once again, I always stress to everybody that even though Donald Trump ran as a Republican, he's not really a Republican. No. He's not really a Democrat. He's not a liberal. He's not a conservative. Nope. He does go to the right on things. He does go to the left on things. Yep. But one thing that he has done, and you have to give credit to him, he has pulled out the Ronald Reagan playbook for diplomacy. He's also pulled out the Ronald Reagan playbook for common sense and listening to his military advisors and listening to his generals. Okay? He's listening to these people. That, of course, as anti-military as Barack Obama was, he would never take the advice or listen to anybody in the military. Not at all. George W. Bush, he had too much of his dad in him. George H.W. Bush didn't finish the job that we should have finished with Saddam Hussein during the first Gulf War. And of course, that eventually, many, many years later, and different things. Of course, Bill Clinton notoriously let a certain leader of Al Qaeda run loose, and which ended up leading to the attack on the 9/11 attacks, and of course, that being Bin Laden. We could have had Bin Laden arrested, killed during the Clinton administration, but he wouldn't act on it. So now fast forward, all these different leaders had their weaknesses and such militarily. The Bushes just in a lot of cases didn't finish the job. Well, in this case, I think a lot of the leaders around the world, whether it be terrorist, crazy nutcase leaders such as Little Kim and stuff like that, they look at Donald Trump. Some of the North Korean military leaders look at Donald Trump, probably, talk to themselves in private, which, even having a thought in North Korea can get you killed. So they better be real secret with those thoughts, thinking, you know what, that Donald Trump's crazier than our own damn leader. So, I don't know if we want to mess with this guy. But bottom line is, it is a perception. It is the perception, the persona that you give in public in dealing with these situations. And you know what? Here's the thing about Donald Trump. Whether you like him, love him, whatever, he does not bullshit around. Okay? He's not going to pussyfoot about and lollygag. He's going to get things done. And whether you like what he's doing or not, and he's going to tell you exactly what he thinks. And in this case, in dealing with the likes of terrorism, hey, you know what? Given our military forces the right to actually engage and defend themselves, what a concept! You have to remember, Barack Obama took that away.
Well, yes,
and,
he did.
All of a sudden, our troops can actually defend themselves. They can fight back. They can act in situations that call for, responding to with military strikes, responding to terrorism in their area so that they are protected. They've expanded those zones out a little bit. But here's the thing. You're looking, if you go back and look at how Ronald Reagan dealt with Gaddafi in Libya and dealt with other things around the world, dealt with the Russians. Stop and think about this, how he dealt with the Russians. Ronald Reagan led to the fall of the Soviet Union, the fall of the Berlin Wall, et cetera, et cetera. So Donald Trump has gone back to that playbook of that tough talk. There's no need to, go into another, there's a reason why all of a sudden the Russians and Putin are talking about, hey, look at all these great new weapons we got. Because they figured out, hey, we have to talk tough too, in different things. And then Trump says, hey, that's great, but you know what? We got a missile defense system that'll blow any type of crap you've got out of the sky. So, hey, we're good. So here it is. He's talking and sounding like the Gipper in all of this, in engaging, and he has earned that respect, and that is due with that type of talk. And if you look at his accomplishments very quietly, I know we talk about his accomplishments with the judicial appointments, the Supreme Court, the tax reform package and stuff like that. But what he has done on the world stage in restoring, a lot of people argue, well, the United States, it shouldn't be their responsibility to be the policeman of the world, to lead all of these things. You know what, folks? Like it or not, that is the role that we have as the United States of America. We are the leaders of the free world. It is something we have embraced, and certainly Donald Trump is channeling Ronald Reagan and restoring that respect across the world. And I'm telling you right now, if Donald Trump was to tell North Korea, guess what? We're going to start taking out some of your missile sites if you don't do this. That's exactly what would happen, because that's what Ronald Reagan would have done.
We got one more minute to go before the bottom of the hour, and you bring up a very interesting point. People have called Trump sort of unhinged, off the cuff, using rhetoric like that. But I'll tell you what, North Korea, China, Russia, they actually think, they are convinced, I believe, that a military strike on the North is possible under this regime, which I think led to those two other superpowers to agree to the most recent United Nations sanctions, which was certainly a beginning against Kim Jong-un. But as Spock said in one of the Star Trek movies, only Nixon can go to China. Well, in this case, I submit that only Trump, certainly none of his predecessors, could get anything like this to occur prior. History shows that quite clearly. Folks, we're talking to Dan Butcher of High Plains Media And you're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin on the Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. After about 3 or 4 minutes, we are going to be right back, and right back with Dan Butcher. Don't go away.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through SHRmedia.com, HighPlainsTalkRadio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on BlogTalkRadio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
This is Sam on SHR Media. You can listen to my new show starting on Tuesdays in January. Get my perspective on national politics, a conservative's perspective on California politics, the latest in the war on terror, all of that and a lot more here on Tuesdays at SHR Media. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Sam_SHR Media.
Comey also originally concluded that it was, quote, reasonably likely that Clinton's insecure private server was accessed or hacked by hostile actors, though there was no evidence to prove it. But that passage
Christian
also changed to the much
faith,
weaker possible
American by nationality,
the full draft and edits were released on the website of Senate Homeland and Government Affairs Committee Chairman Ron Johnson, providing the most complete public accounting to date of Comey's draft and the subsequent edits. The full draft with edits leaves little doubt that Comey originally wrote on May 2nd, 2016 that there was evidence that Clinton and top aides may have violated felony and misdemeanor statutes, though he did not believe he could prove intent before a jury.
On SHR Media.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Weaver Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on SHRmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians, a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless, hope to the hopeless, clues to the clueless. Sackheads Sean, Sackheads Clint, and Sackheads BZ. The Sackheads Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern on SHRmedia.com. Watch on YouTube, Facebook, and the High Plains Pundit Network. The best in late-night conservative talk, the Sackheads Radio Show, only on the SHR Media Network.
Go ahead, I'll say it.
Some of the best A-roll is going to be evil.
Like, what are you talking about? Just the last question that you cut a couple seconds. Yeah, I'm a freaking artist. I can't just come up with this shit off the top of my head. Are you freaking kidding me right now?
Good point. Exactly right.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint, and I'm with Sackhead Sean, Sackhead BZ. No communists allowed on the SHR Media Network.
Damn straight, mister.
Back to the show.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
This is, in fact, the SHR Media Network. You are listening live and direct to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, where I am currently broadcasting less than 2 miles from the locus of evil on the entire left coast, the capital of the state of Fornicalia, Sacramento. The stench of sulfur is in the air, which is why I say I am broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. We're talking to Dan Butcher, and we were talking about what had occurred recently when it appears that the North Koreans are being a little bit conciliatory and that they've expressed an interest in sitting down sometime in May, Kim Jong-un specifically, with Donald Trump to chat a bit. And Trump has made it pretty damn clear that he's only interested in this if one of the items, non-negotiable, will be the denuclearization of North Korea. Thank you, William Jefferson Clinton, for handing that over to the North Koreans and allowing them to do that, and Barack Hussein Obama for leading from behind, which is a euphemism for I'm a fucktard and I'm not going to do anything at all with regard to this. But the funny thing is, Dan and I were discussing Trump and the fact that I don't think that anyone else could have gotten this concession, and it truly is a concession, out of anybody else, any of the other presidents. Because here's one important thing, and I'm sure Dan already realizes that, is this. What did Trump give up to get this meeting? And the answer is nothing. Except,
not a damn thing.
But that's the exact opposite, Dan Butcher of High Plains Media, that's the exact same opposite fashion that Barack Hussein Obama operated from. A position of leading from behind, which is no leadership whatsoever, and handing the store over, particularly to Iran, when you didn't need to at all. And the North Koreans are in a bad spot. Their soldiers are in a bad spot. Their civilians are in a bad spot. And there may actually be pressure. So one thing to President Trump is hold your mud. Don't give anything to these guys that they don't deserve, and offer nothing up front. Now, having said that, Dan Butcher, do you think Donald John Trump will adhere to that?
Well, let me sum it up with this. And I want to give this example. And this is a great example of how Donald Trump is bringing the North Koreans to the bargaining table. This is how he's going to bring the Chinese to the bargaining table. It's how he's got the attention of the Russians, that we're not going to mess around and let them continue to blackmail European countries with their oil and heating fuel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Think about the symbolism of this. And this is a great example of how Trump is able to get these concessions without giving up a damn thing.
Yep.
Recently, the Trump administration sent the aircraft carrier USS Carl Vinson, which is without a doubt the most badass warship afloat today, along with its entire carrier support group, which includes cruisers, battleships, refuelers, etc., support aircraft, what have you, and they parked the USS Carl Vinson and its entire support group off the coast of Da Nang, Vietnam. Now, think about that. That was the first time a U.S. aircraft carrier had been to Vietnam since 1975. You have to remember, Da Nang, the other symbolism of this, Da Nang is where we retreated out of Vietnam at the end of the Vietnam War. So that is how Trump gets these things. Parking the most badass warship in the world off the coast of Vietnam with its entire support group that's ready to act at a moment's notice, continuing to carry out drills and stuff. Folks, that sends a very strong message. It would have only been better if you had said, I don't know, maybe the USS Ronald Reagan, but hey, it is what it is. And so that's how he gets these stuff. He lets people know that he is serious. He's not messing around.
There are actually 3 carrier strike groups in there right now. Vinson is definitely one of them. And people are saying, CNN, for example, was saying 3 U.S. aircraft carriers are creating the worst ever situation by their presence. Except that now we're seeing results from the rhetoric at Donald John Trump and the actions of Donald John Trump. Let's remember one of the first things that occurred in the first month of his presidency was a bit of a metal shower that Donald John Trump proceeded to bestow upon Syria and an airfield. So it would seem to me beholden to certain persons in certain countries that if Donald Trump happens to say something, he's likely going to follow through with it. Now, North Korea, that's just one story. It was an amazing story, no doubt at all. But here's another story. This was not covered very much, and I'm going to get to the big story shortly, but here's another one that wasn't covered very much. The Trump administration, a judge rules that the Trump administration can, in fact, withhold a grant from the state of California over sanctuary concerns, and this was terribly underreported. This came out of San Francisco. They're not going to have to immediately yield a $1 million grant to California because of its sanctuary status. I'm sorry. That's called a win in my book. And then we had, earlier this week, the Justice Department said, and this is where I'd like you to weigh in just a minute, the Justice Department says that it's going to sue the state of California over sanctuary laws that aid those in the United States illegally. And trust me when I tell you, sir, there was, in fact, pants-shitting hysteria all throughout the leftist sides everywhere. You could smell it in downtown Sacramento. It was even more pernicious than the customary smell of sulfur from the state capitol. And that occurred today as well. Thoughts, Dan Butcher?
Well, let me finish up. I'm going to come back to this, but I want to finish up this real quick. Okay. Going back to South and North Korea real quick.
Okay.
Stop and think about this. Not only are we seeing North Korea come to the bargaining table, consider, talking about mentioning denuclearization and stuff like that. Think of what this could lead to. This could actually, a lot of people forget that the Korean War has never ended. We basically have what is the equivalent with the armistice is a ceasefire. Yep. And so stop and think about this. You have these sides talking. You could see an actual treaty bringing an end to the Korean War, and think about what that could lead to. That could lead into, I don't know, here's something to think about, peace in the Middle East. Think about that. That's the type of stuff that we're talking about here. Now, coming back to dealing with the sanctuary cities and such in California, you are seeing the Trump administration responding very tough on this because you're talking about city and state officials, and I'm going to call out the mayor of Oakland in particular, and I'll give an example of what this wonderful lady did. So what you're looking at is they're openly breaking, in my opinion, federal law, and they're aiding and abetting very serious criminals. I'm not talking about the folks that have come across the border, that are trying to put food on the table, trying to feed their families and stuff like that. I'm talking about the criminals, the gang members, the rapists, the murderers, the drunk drivers, the drunk drivers that have killed people driving down the road. These are the serious folks. These are the folks that the Trump administration is going after. They're going after the bad of the bad as far as immigration enforcement. So when you're talking about sanctuary cities and such, and we're wanting to protect these type of folks. Though the Trump administration's not going after the folks that are working here illegal, trying to put food on the table. Different. They want them to become citizens. They want them to get on a path of citizenship, be here legally, be contributing members of society. They want all the bad of the bad out of the country. We don't want them here. We don't want the murderers, the rapists, the child molesters, the drunk drivers, et such here, with the gang members. We don't want them here. That is who the Trump I post every day. It seems like I post an article on our website dealing with, we've arrested another 20 here. We've had another raid of we recently had a raid with over 200, 212 arrested. Different things like that. And so it seems like you see those every day. And they're going, and you see the list of the types of criminals that they arrested. These are the bad of the bad that the Trump administration is going after. They're not trying to separate families. They're not trying to separate. You've had some unfortunate cases, especially with Dreamers and stuff, that you have maybe had some families separated. But what you don't hear is how the Trump administration tries to keep those families together, tries to work things out, and even after they're deported, tries to bring them back legally. Except you don't hear about that. You just hear, Trump has separated a hardworking father from his wife and his two children. You don't hear how they're working to try to get back. Or you don't hear some of the circumstances of maybe why Dad was deported because, I don't know, he was a mobster and a gang member for MS-13 or something like that. So he ain't coming back. But here's the point. And I'm going to call out the mayor of Oakland, California in particular, because the mayor of Oakland, California has been openly warning about immigration raids in the city. She has made it a mission of hers to warn about immigration. And that's why you have seen, because of her actions, why the Trump administration has really picked up their actions against the state of California, different cities, particularly San Francisco, Sacramento, Oakland, in the state of California. Because basically, bottom line, they are aided and abetting very, very dangerous criminals. There's no other way to put it. And in particular, the mayor of Oakland, California, in my opinion, could be looking at some very serious trouble, let's face it, legal troubles of her own, by hampering federal officials and who are trying to take dangerous criminals off of the street. This goes more than immigration reform. This is about taking very dangerous criminals off of the street. Repeat offenders, people that have come across the border, not just a couple of times, 5, 6, 7, 8, a dozen times. Enough's enough. You got to go, right? And so once again, but it's mainly the bad of the bad, the dangerous, most dangerous folks. And, I think eventually, this is going to be more than a lawsuit. I would think somewhere along the line, federal immigration officials are going to start coming after a lot of, here in the state of Texas, you can actually file criminal charges against, elected officials that hamper federal immigration and such. That had to do with our sanctuary cities law that was passed here in the state of Texas. But I think you're going to start seeing federal officials stepping up actions against elected officials, business owners, and stuff like that, as far as aiding and abetting the people that they're going after. You're talking about the mayor of Oakland, California. They recently released a whole bunch of very dangerous criminals. Once again, we're not talking. They weren't just releasing people trying to feed their families, trying to take care of their children. Before immigration officials got there, they released murderers, rapists, child molesters, drunk drivers. Really? And that was on the direct order of the mayor of Oakland, California. And so somewhere along the lines, you have to think that there's going to have to be some criminal liability as far as these elected officials. That once again, I'm not going to mix words here. They're aiding and abetting very dangerous criminals, BZ. There's no other way to put it.
No, there is no other way to put it. The rampant, incredible, mind-boggling, what I would call arrogance, is exhibited again by leftists, and specifically in California. California's Attorney General, a guy by the name of Xavier Becerra, said that specifically this is a quote, "States and local jurisdictions have the right to determine which policies are best for their communities." What that means, translated in left speak, is fuck the federal government. We're gonna do what we want, when we want it, however, caveat, asterisk, when it's specifically in our benefit. We're standing on the 10th right now. We're standing tall and mighty on the 10th Amendment because right now doing so happens to benefit us in what we're doing. Now, Jerry Brown said, and this was in a tweet. By the way, Jerry Brown does not tweet ever. He doesn't have the physical capability or the mental fecundity to be able to do it. So it wasn't Jerry Brown who did it, but some hack under his guise wrote, "At a time of unprecedented political turmoil, Jeff Sessions has come to California to further divide and polarize America. Jeff, these political stunts may be the norm in Washington, but they don't work here." Translated, all you're doing is asking us to abide by the law, and we don't even want to do that. I've said this for a long time. And let's see, we've got about 8 more minutes to the top of the hour. I've said this for a long time. Folks, in the Senate, in the Congress, the Houses, if you don't like the immigration laws, change them, rewrite them. But you don't have the testicles or the wherewithal to do that because you know that you wouldn't be able to get that done. Conversely, both sides of the aisle, cui bono, Latin, who benefits? Both sides of the aisle. Mostly the Democrats, but the GOP, of course, get some nice labor out of that, which is another issue entirely. If we don't go to a merit-based system of immigration, we are well and truly screwed, because 60% of the people that come from, say, just Mexico over the southern border, they're damn near completely illiterate. Now, what's the future of the United States and most Western civilized countries? More and more tech. All the jobs that allegedly these illegals need, America needs these illegals to do these jobs. Again, bullshit alert, because all those jobs at entry levels are being moved over to technology and will be solved by technology, which is why we need a merit-based system. So, now, after the top of the hour, at the top of the hour break, Dan Busher of High Plains Media, I want to get into what it is that you covered and you found in Texas. So we only have a few more minutes to cover some of the other big stories that are occurring here. Another one this didn't get covered. Now, I haven't been to your site today, so I don't know if you happen to cover this. But if you don't go to sarahcarter.com, you're doing yourself a disservice, because guess what? Now, the House Intelligence Committee investigation is now looking at John Kerry in the State Department.
Yes.
Well, now, isn't that interesting? And then there's another positive story that occurred this week. It seems to me like Jeff Sessions is finally waking up after a 1-year slumber. I don't know where he went. Maybe he went to the Seychelles island chain with Bobby Mueller. I don't know. But he appears to be coming back to earth and doing some things over at the DOJ. Trey Gowdy and Bob Goodlatte, they're demanding an appointment of a special counsel specifically because of all of these FISA abuses that are going on and guess what, Dan? Well, let me ask you right off the bat, Dan. Do you think there's a chance that we may get another special counsel? And I can tell you specifically why a special counsel instead of the DOJ or specifically the IG, the Inspector general going after this, I can tell you why there's a need for a special counsel. But I'm curious what you think about that, Dan.
You don't know because there's different things that have happened. Let me tell you what has happened so far in the quote-unquote Russian collusion investigation.
Nothing.
There's not been any evidence of collusion. What you have found was a big money. What ended up happening is, Carter Page and Paul Manafort, they're not facing charges for collusion, stuff like that. They're facing charges for running a massive money laundering operation.
They're lying about it.
That was something that was that was a whole nother set of crimes that was uncovered by this investigation. That has nothing to do with Donald Trump, the Russians, what have you. So now, but here's the interesting thing that continues to happen as far as connections to the Russians. It's not the Trump administration or the Trump campaign that had connections with the Russians or did anything lack thereof or whatever. It was the Obama administration. Exactly. It's the connections of Hillary Clinton to the Russians. It is especially through, guess what, the Clinton Foundation. It is the connections of different former officials that are tied to the Obama administration in different ways that try to, let's face it, Barack Obama did absolutely nothing to stifle the Russians who were, but were they hacking into voting machines? So you're damn right they were. But what they were doing is they were trying to test the waters. They were trying to cause, trying to cause a little panic. And guess what? They've succeeded. They have succeeded in causing an investigation that's complete and utter bullshit that has gone nowhere. That's what we have found in all of our reporting. As we have dug, looking for it, we have shown, hey, guess what? There's nothing there.
There's more. There's more. Number one, we got 2 minutes. I mean, I got more stories to tell you. We got 2 minutes to the top of the hour break. But did anybody realize that back in January of this year, the FBI, now we're talking about the people that actually do the job, the agents, the FBI, they decided they're going to launch an investigation of the Clinton Foundation from Little Rock, Arkansas. FBI, because that's where the Clinton Foundation was begun. So all of this shit, Dan, is finally starting to come home to roost. Oh, there's more. There's more.
And once again, it all goes back to an investigation that was looking into one thing and has come back to bite a whole bunch of other people in the ass in other ways with other investigations that they never thought would see the light of day, BZ.
I said this. We're going to have to go for the top of the hour break in just a second, but I said this. The Democrats and mostly Hillary Clinton failed to transition from November 8th into November 9th. On November 9th,
bingo.
They literally, books have revealed this now, they sat down and determined what it is that they were going to wrap their arms around and embrace in terms of why it was Hillary Clinton did not win. And they decided it was going to be Trump and Russia. If they had said, oh, well, fuck it, we lost, none of this would be exposed, and we would be stupid and naive, and they would have gotten away with it. But no, it was their own arrogance and capriciousness, mostly arrogance, that was their death knell. Now, folks, we're going to take a break, a couple of minutes. We're going to be right back. We are speaking to Dan Butcher, live and direct from Texas, of High Plains Media. We're going to take a break, be right back. More stories, more buttery political goodness, and then we're going to chat at length with Dan about some things that may have occurred in Texas itself recently. Don't go away.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Good evening. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is featured on the SHR Media Network every Tuesday and Thursday night for 2 hours at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific. Whilst manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ continues to radically change the world of leftists, one diaper at a time. Stop balancing your checkbooks. Stop cleaning your fish tanks. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is your magnet for truth, justice, obesity, a darkened studio, and late-night freedom. No United States of America freedoms were abridged in the making of this ad.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians, a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless, hope to the hopeless, clues to the clueless. Sackheads Sean, Sackheads Clint, and Sackheads BZ. The Sackheads Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern on SHRmedia.com. Watch on YouTube, Facebook, and the High Plains Pundit Network. The best in late-night conservative talk, the Sackheads Radio Show, only on the SHR Media Network.
Go ahead, I'll say it again.
Some of the best A-roll is going to be B-roll.
Like, what are you talking about? You just, like, the last question that you cut a couple seconds. Yeah, I'm a freaking artist. I can't just come up with this shit off the top of my head. Are you freaking kidding me right now?
Hey, good point. Exactly right. Oh, God.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on SHRmedia.com.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through SHRmedia.com, HighPlainsTalkRadio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the unpleasant blind guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on BlogTalkRadio.com. There's
no surrender ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
This is Sam on SHR Media. You can listen to my new show starting on Tuesdays in January. Get my perspective on national politics, a conservative's perspective on California politics, the latest in the war on terror, all of that and a lot more here on Tuesdays at SHR Media. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Sam_SHR Media.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Weaver Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on SHRmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint, and I'm with Sackhead Sean, Sackhead BZ. No communists allowed on the SHR Media Network.
Damn straight, mister.
Back to the show.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back. It's the second hour of the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from the SHR Media studio, 2 miles from the veritable belly of the beast, the locus of evil on the entire west coast of the United Snakes of America, Sacratomato, Fornicalia. We've been talking to Dan Butcher, he of High Plains Media fame. And Dan, before we go on, I want to kind of run 5 news stories by you in somewhat rapid succession. You pick out whatever the hell you want to talk about, but each one of these, in my opinion, is a great, great story. Some of them absolutely underreported. One of the first ones is this. Were people aware that the DOJ, like I say, Jeff Sessions, seems to have awakened from a Rumpelstiltskin type of slumber? The DOJ has now announced that the Fast and Furious documents, which Eric Holder wouldn't release, are now going to be released. Then there's this. Peter Strzok, the FBI agent who still has a job, don't know how the hell he pulled that off. James Clapper, the former DNI of everything under Barack Hussein Obama, they ignored the possible hack of Hillary's server with the consent of Obama. That's getting no traction whatsoever, but that's a story. Then there's this story. Peter Strzok, while he was there working for Bobby Mueller, he didn't follow up, and for the FBI, he didn't follow up on a possible breach of the Clinton email server. That report came out. Then there's this story, which is a grand story, and this would never have happened under Barack Hussein Obama. By the year 2023, the United States will be the world's largest oil producer, says the IEA. Holy mother of God. That's an incredible thing. That is energy independence. Incredible. And then there was this. Americans, they may need to stand up and start applauding President Trump for his beginning to end our wholesale surrender on trade. For years, we just decided to surrender on trade. Then, because of that, and people are of two minds about this, and this is where I want you to weigh in, Dan, when I get through with this final story that I'm throwing out in the ozone for you. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Some steel and aluminum makers to restart plant operations amid tariff plans. They're already making plans for spooling up steel and aluminum production here in the United States just because of what Donald John Trump has instigated. Astounding. These are great things. Any thoughts about any of those? I know that was a ton of stuff, but pick and choose whatever the hell you want, Dan.
Well, actually, I can sum up all the stories and lump some of them together. The first three that you're talking about, stop and think about think about the common trail of those first three stories. They all lead back to where? The the Obama administration. Yep. They all lead back to Hillary Clinton. So it all stinks, and we've talked about this. This includes other things that happened during the administration. Yes. Fast and Furious, Benghazi. What's a common word we're using here? Collusion, cover-ups. Yeah. Remember, the Obama administration, when Barack Obama left office, he declared, now, of course, when the Clintons left office, they stole everything, including the kitchen sink and the silverware from the White House. Now, when Obama left, he says, I have had the most scandal-free presidency in the history of our country. No major scandals. We had the most transparent administration in the history of known mankind. But look at what is happening. Now that Trump is in office, remember, it was the Obama folks and the Hillary folks that started all of this, going all the way back to the dossier that started all of this. It was the Obama administration that was, that ordered surveillance on the Trump campaign. They were trying, but what has happened? It's all led back to the cover-ups, the misdeeds, the inactions of the Obama administration, Hillary Clinton, et cetera, et cetera. Now, let's come down to the trade stories and different things. Isn't it absolutely, let's just sum all of these up in one thing. Isn't it absolutely amazing when you pass tax reform and you put more money in the pockets of American workers? When you put more money back in companies to invest, you lower the tax rates, all of a sudden they're bringing money that they've parked overseas for decades back into the U.S. economy. What an amazing thing to happen when all of a sudden you start seeing retail sales ramp up, you start seeing production ramp up, different things. It is amazing what happens when you do away with absolutely ridiculous, overburdensome, unneeded regulations. Do we need regulations? Yes, we do. Yep. We have things to put in place. Do we need to protect the environment, look at different things to control pollution? Yes, we do. But we have to have common sense practices to do so. So isn't it amazing when you have a common sense approach and use common sense regulations, when you don't have regulation on top of regulation on top of regulation that are completely redundant, that nobody knows what the hell is going on? It is amazing what companies can do. They can hire more workers, put out more products, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And guess what else? That spurs. What is the backbone of the U.S. economy? It's not big companies. It's small entrepreneurs. Look at the startups that are taking place. When you have lower taxes, people can invest money, what have you. All of a sudden you're seeing an absolute boom in entrepreneurs and startups, new family-owned businesses across the country. And stop and think about this. When you're looking at an industry in the United States, let's face it, the steel industry in the United States has been dead for decades.
Literally.
And all of a sudden you're looking at a rebound? Why? It's not. It's not even, people will say, well, Trump leveling the playing field? Well, maybe so. You know, but what he's doing is he is definitely making sure that our trade agreements and that other deals that we have with other countries are equal. Yes. We have been at such a disadvantage as far as treaties, trade agreements. It is absolutely ridiculous. NAFTA with everything that it could have done in a good way. The idea behind NAFTA is absolutely fantastic. How it's been implemented is an absolute disaster for the United States. So, bottom line is Trump is using his business sense and he is using a common sense approach to help spur the U.S. economy, create new jobs, create new businesses, and to help industries that have been long dead revive themselves. So this goes back to the old adage. You know what? Not everybody has to have a college degree. But there is now a big need. Remember, the Obama administration, everybody's got to have a college degree. Yeah. Everybody's got to have a college degree. Trump has noticed, we need a lot of smart people with college degrees, but we also need a lot of smart people to be plumbers, to be machinists, to be mechanics, to be carpenters, to be this, to be that.
Exactly.
And that is what we are looking at that's taking place in the country today. Ladies and gentlemen, it's two simple words. It's called common sense.
Yes, and equilibrium. One of the reasons that businesses failed to profit in the entire 8 years of Barack Hussein Obama is because they were in a period of just dog paddling. They really did not know what further regulations and onerous laws were going to be placed upon them, primarily because of Obamacare. Now they have the ability to take a breath and go, okay, we can actually find some equilibrium, as you indicate, some common sense, and we can begin to plan. They could not plan for a future where everything was absolutely uncertain. But on that, the New York Times came out with a story today that was covered by Fox News. You were talking about the tax plan. This involves the tax plan. The New York Times at least a month afterwards, they issued a correction after a report that they had that was attacking President Trump's tax plan. They got the numbers as fucked up as they possibly could be. What they did is they supplied a hypothetical 1040, and they created this middle-class taxpayer called Sam and Felicity Taxpayer, and they insisted that the average taxpayer's bill would rise by $4,000, with one major exception. When you actually do the numbers, the taxes go down. Even that perennial tax increase dude, Warren Buffett, came out, and he's now finally acknowledging that there is, there is an economic benefit to the Trump tax cuts. But the New York Times newsroom was not going to have any of that stuff. They're so in the tank, just as you pointed out. And it's all coming home to roost. It's all coming home to roost, Dan. I'm loving it.
Let me sum it up this way, BZ. Under the 8 years of Barack Obama, it was, you can't build that.
Yep.
You cannot do anything without government. Under Donald Trump, in the first year of his presidency, it has been, get up off your ass, and you can do that, and you will do that.
Yep.
That's the big difference in attitude.
It is. There are so many wonderful things that are starting to break, that are starting to turn around, and I suspect this would be this is a perfect time now to transition over to what you were covering on Tuesday, because with all of these things that are going on, that in my opinion and yours also, these positive things that are occurring, if we lose the House, if we lose the Senate, if we lose governorships, if we lose additional seats, some or a lot of these things could be quite in jeopardy. Let me, if I can, Dan Butcher, throw out this sentence, and then you take it and run, sir, because I know you will. We know for a fact that Tuesday, all the Democrats, all the leftists, all the American media maggots were saying on Tuesday, Texas, it's going to be a blue wave. It was going to be a blue tsunami. Dan, was it?
No. Let me give you an example. Now, you did see an increase in Democrat turnout, which that was not surprising.
No.
Back in 2014, during a midterm election, had about 500,000 Democrats turn out to vote in the primaries. You had just over a million. You had just over a million Republicans and different things like that. So, but here in the state of Texas this last time, and of course it is a primary election, you had 1.5 million Republicans. You had over a million Democrats. Basically, Republicans still turned out the polls 3-1 versus Democrats. It was ridiculous. But here, bottom line is, here in the state of Texas, they were saying, hey, we're going to turn Texas blue. They said they were going to do. You remember when Greg Abbott first ran for governor many years ago, and we brought, and different things, and hey, that's not going to happen. We're going to turn Texas blue. Well, the Democrats have been misreading Texas for many, many years. They've misread the Hispanic vote. They have misread the minority vote, quite honestly, here in the state of Texas. Now, do we have some liberal strongholds? Yeah, you bet we do. San Antonio, Houston, there's some liberal strongholds, but there's very strong conservative Republican strongholds around those. I mean, in Harris County, the biggest concentration of Republicans is in Harris County, which is where Houston is situated. Fort Worth and Tarrant County and Denton County by a large margin cancel out the the Democrats in Dallas County, and Dallas County has a large number of Republicans. People often say, that Austin's a very liberal city. In reality, Austin's about a 50-50 split if you get down to it. So, but bottom line is, Texas, despite what you said, I think when you see a lot of reporting, whether it's a blue wave is going to take place, you didn't see that. It was actually far from the opposite. It was a blue dud, if you want to get down to it. Not even a ripple.
Let me throw out this story. There's a story that I want you to comment on right now, and this is how the American media maggots craft this crap. Mm-hmm. The story says Democrats marched to the polls in record numbers, just as you mentioned, in Harris County, and the effort to shift the state's largest voting jurisdiction from purple to blue continues. Democrats in Harris County turned out blah, blah, blah voters in the primary. This compares to an increase in 211%. The thing they don't mention in this article is who won. So who won? In Texas, who won?
Well, let me tell you, the Republicans. And bottom line, let me tell you.
That's what this article doesn't say.
Let me point out, even in Harris County, the Republicans turned out in greater numbers than the Democrats did, and that's a Democrat stronghold. So go figure. The Republicans still turned out in greater numbers. And that generally happens, especially on Election Day. The Republicans do tend to turn out. They turn out in early voting, different things like that. Did you see an increase in Democratic voters? Well, yeah. You know what? That's a good thing. My opinion, I want to see more voters going to the polls. You need to go to the polls. You need to vote. Now, anyway, it's you have to look at different things and how different things happened and why they happened. But bottom line is what we saw here is the quality. I will tell you this of on the Democrat side, you have the son of former Governor Mark White, who's a Democrat. And then, of course, you have the former sheriff in Dallas County. They're going to be battling it out in a runoff to be the sacrificial lamb against Greg Abbott in November. But let me tell you, now, here is something. Now, this is a very serious race that could have serious implications. I don't think the Democrats are going to they're definitely not going to make any gains. The makeup of the congressional representation from the state of Texas is going to remain roughly the same. Of course, the U.S. senators, John Cornyn is not up for re-election. I'm going to get to the other guy in just a second. They're not going to make any great. They're not actually the Republicans are looking at returning to a supermajority in the Texas House. I actually live in the area that probably is going to be represented by the next Speaker of the House in Texas, which the leader in that is from my hometown. His name's Price, and he is probably going to be the next Speaker of the House here in the state of Texas. So that's a great thing for the area that I live in. But bottom line, they're looking at losing seats in the Senate's probably going to remain the same, but in the House, the Republicans are looking at going back over 100 representatives, which would give them a supermajority again in that case. Now, with that said, let me tell you where the Democrats moving forward to November, they're certainly going to. They know there's no way they're going to beat Greg Abbott. They know there's no way they're going to make any great strides sending more Democrats to Capitol Hill in D.C. from the state of Texas. They know there's no way they're going to make any gains in Austin. What they are going to focus their entire strategy on, it's going to be the U.S. Senate race between Ted Cruz and Beto O'Rourke. Now, if you don't know who Beto O'Rourke is, he is a United States congressman. He currently serves in the United States in the House of Representatives. Basically, the area that he represents is around the El Paso, Texas area. Joaquin Castro used to represent that area before he moved back to San Antonio, and is now a congressman out of San Antonio. But Beto O'Rourke is a congressman from El Paso. He's young. He's got that Ted Kennedy type, He's got that John F. Kennedy. If he had that Ted Kennedy type appeal, he would be losing. But he's got the John F. Kennedy type of appeal. He's young, good-looking, very charismatic, and that's kind of what the Democrats are looking for. They're looking for somebody young, charismatic, different, something like that. I tell you what. It would have been better for Beto O'Rourke had given the response to President Trump's State of the Union address than it was for that young Kennedy.
Putting a Kennedy
that was a
Kennedy
disaster.
Out there?
But,
good God.
But let me tell you.
He couldn't be whiter.
Yeah. Ted Cruz is taking Beto O'Rourke very seriously. O'Rourke has he has the money. He has the backing to make a serious run at Ted Cruz. Do I think he's going to beat Ted Cruz? I don't think so. But, things can happen. And the Democrats are certainly going to focus everything here in the state of Texas on taking that one Senate seat. Because they're going to do that in other parts of the country. They know the U.S. Senate is the one thing that they can capture and gum up everything with Trump. And so here in the state of Texas, forget about every other race. They're going to focus on the O'Rourke and Ted Cruz race. So they're going to put everything they have behind Beto O'Rourke. And Ted Cruz has said, hey, you know what, Republicans? We need to get our act together because he's a serious contender. And I'm going to need all the help I can get to keep this seat. And so we better be watchful, or they may sneak up behind us, and they could possibly beat us for that Senate seat. And that's not just here in Texas. That's something else. And so, if they were to win that seat here in the state of Texas, they would proclaim, I guarantee you, the Democrats would proclaim Beto O'Rourke the second coming of Jesus Christ himself. He'll be the savior of the party, just like Barack Obama was in 2008. Think about that. So you would have the same effect with Beto O'Rourke, and you're looking at somebody that they would get behind to push for a presidential run, even after a short term in the Senate, simply because he's also been a United States Congressman, so he has certainly a lot more experience than Barack Obama ever had running for president.
Here's three things I'd like to interject. We've got 2 minutes before the break. Number one, and I find this just jovial in terms of schadenfreude, the Democrats are putting their elders out on the ice floes and kicking them out to the Arctic.
Yes, they are.
So you can say bye-bye to Nancy Pelosi, and you can say bye-bye to Di-Fi as well. The second thing I'd like to point out is if all of these Democrats think that they're going to be waltzing in line to fill tons of spaces, one very salient and important point, they're just about bankrupt. They really don't have all that much money to be throwing at a lot of these races. Folks, we're going to take a break. This is going to be the final segment coming up. We've been speaking to Dan Butcher of High Plains Media, and we're going to continue talking about Texas, because what I want to talk about in the future, well, one thing I'm going to point out is that everybody thinks that, the Democrats are so wonderful. The races for Senate are going to go so great for the Democrats. Not exactly. I have 5 people that I'd like to talk to you about that might be in some very serious jeopardy. And then we're going to get back into Texas. We're going to talk about the primaries. We're going to transition to some midterms. And then Dan and I will have a little bit of a chat about what it is that 2018 just might portend for both of the parties. Folks, don't go away.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Reaver Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on SHRmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
Hey guys, this is Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Check us out every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network.
And this is Sackhead Clint, as the best-looking one of the bunch. It's my duty to remind you to check us out on our YouTube channel.
And don't forget to check us out on the SHR Media Facebook page. The best-looking one? Really? You going to go there?
Every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific, right here on the
SHR
Voters'
Choice.
Media
I have the award
Network.
right here.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
This is Sam on SHR Media. You can listen to my new show starting on Tuesdays in January. Get my perspective on national politics, a conservative's perspective on California politics, the latest in the war on terror, all of that and a lot more here on Tuesdays at SHR Media. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Sam_SHR Media.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through SHRmedia.com, HighPlainsTalkRadio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on BlogTalkRadio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on SHRmedia.com.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show.
And Sackheads BZ.
Wait, I'm Sean.
No, I'm Sean.
All right, listen, we'll figure this out every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Pacific, right here on the
Where the hell is Clint?
on the SHR Media Network. www.shrmedia.com. Check us out on Facebook and YouTube. Now, right back to this amazing show right here on the SHR Media Network.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is the final segment of tonight's show. Today is Thursday. It's the year of our Lord, March 8th already. My Lord, March 8th. The year of our Lord, 2018. Great day, great night. We've been getting some rain around here in Sacramento, definitely needing it. My place up in the Sierra Nevada mountains, my area up there. I'm sitting on about 3.5 feet of snow right now, which is has kind of tanked up the Sierra Nevada water supply because, well, as you well know, a great deal of that water gets flushed all the way down to Southern California so that people who really don't belong in this state very much can use my water from my mountains for them. Dan Butcher had an issue. He may not be coming back. If he does, he's certainly welcome, but I still have tons and tons of stories for you. Now, one of the things I said is that the Democrats look as though they may be a little bit in trouble in the Senate. Well, that's true. In terms of that blue wave, oh, gosh-a-roo, is it maybe turning into a little bit of a red wave? There's a poll that just came out that said that 5 Senate Democrats may be in just a bit of some serious trouble. Polls done in 10 states show very bad news for at least 5 Senate Democrats up for re-election this year. In November, a total of 33 Senates are up for re-election. The good news for Republicans is that 23 of those are Democrats. The better news for Republicans is that 10 of those 23 Democrats hail from states won by President Trump in 2016. Axios and SurveyMonkey polled all 10 of those states, and they found that at least 5 Democrats are in what they consider to be pretty serious trouble. Well, let's start down the line. In Montana, Senator John Tester loses to his unnamed Republican challenger 42% to 55%. That's what these polls indicate. Now, in West Virginia, Senator Joe Manchin loses to his unnamed Republican challenger 43% to 52%. In Missouri, oh, no schadenfreude for BZ at all right now, right? Senator Claire McCaskill, no, loses to Republican challenger Josh Hawley 44% to 52%. In Indiana, Senator Joe Donnelly loses to his unnamed Republican challenger 45% to 51%. Please note that in these polls, they're just saying essentially, you know what? We don't like you, Democrats. You don't really have anybody that you're running against in terms of Republicans. We just don't like you. Now, in those states, okay, President Trump's job approval rating is in better shape than the Democrats, of course. In Montana, he's at 58%. Wyoming, he's at 65%. Okay, Missouri, 55%. Indiana, 53%. North Dakota, his approval rating is at 60%. Overall, Pew and other polls indicate that Trump's overall approval rating, not that it really truly matters, but it matters when leftists say it matters, so I'm just throwing it out there into the ozone for you, is running between 48% to 50 to 51%, which is higher than, I care to point out because this continues to be true, higher than Trudeau's approval rating in Canada, higher than the Mexican president in Mexico right now, higher than Angela Merkel, Jesus, higher than French Emmanuel Macron, and higher than Theresa May in the United Kingdom. Funny how that all works out, isn't it? I'm going to Bigfoot myself just a little bit. We're going to go sideways. California, and I'm still working on this because literally for the creation of this story, I have, at this point, I have 52 stories that I'm attempting to somehow fit into a post. And then I'm going to go over that post, and it's either going to be next Tuesday or next Thursday, depending on what guests I can get. For those who are interested and happen to read books, there's an author that I'm in the process of negotiating with to see if I can get him on the show. If you don't read C.J. Box and his stories about a Wyoming Fish and Game officer named Joe, you need to read C.J. Box. Chuck Box has written close to 20 books now. And with each book, he just keeps getting better and better. This month, he has a new book coming out, and so I'm trying to see if I can get him on the show. I'm also, and I've wanted this for quite some time, I want to get Ralph Chittum's on the show. I think Ralph and I could have a wonderful time. And I'd like to introduce my folks to Ralph so that we do a little bit of cross-promotion. I promote Ralph, he promotes me, and these are people that are on the SHR Media Network that we all need to get familiar with so that we can go to their shows, listen, and appreciate what kind of people they are. The other person that I want to get on, and I'm trying to get either Ralph and Melanie, Colette, the Money Talk with Melanie, the Money Diva, trying to get her on the air because I really want to hear what she has to say about two very important topics these days, one of them being Bitcoin, and the second one, what happens if and when we go to a cashless society? I think that's going to be a terrible thing. Now, let me quantify specifically. Terrible for the people, you and me. Great for the government when they want to control your cash and they can force you to spend or save. And if you think I'm a tinfoil hat wearing person like that, you best do maybe a little bit more investigation into that. And also, the other thing I want to ask her is this standard pay. In other words, everyone in every society, in every nation should just get a wage from the state just for the hell of it. By the way, one of the stories that I'm writing for the California's Insane Post is this. There is a mayor in Stockton, he's being challenged, who wants to give everyone in Stockton a wage, wants to give them cash. Now, we're going to jump around a little bit. I talked about Angela Merkel. Angela Merkel is in some serious trouble. She's hanging on by a toenail, so she hasn't been pushed aside completely yet, but she came out of the closet the other day about no-go zones, and I found this very, very telling. You know, but wait, just for a second, okay? Wasn't that the absolute clarion call of Europe, right? From Brussels, from Norway, from Sweden, from France, from the UK, from Deutschland, that there is no such thing as a no-go zone, okay? They said that. There are no-go zones in any of those countries. And why? Well, because that would tend to fly in the face of what GALPs have insisted all along. GALPs are what I call guilty, overeducated white people. GALPs. And they've insisted wrongly for years that there is no difference between anyone's culture. All are good. Most any culture, other than a Western culture, was better yet, okay? There's no difference, as far as they're concerned, between Islam and Western civilizations whatsoever, though Islam happens to have been at war with Western civilization for thousands and thousands of years. It's that terrible thingy called
the German
history.
Chancellor Angela Merkel has acknowledged the problem of so-called no-go zones in the country for the first time during her tenure in office.
Wait, did you hear what he just said? He said Angela Merkel just admitted that there are such things as no-go zones in Germany.
RT's Peter Oliver picks up the story.
We've seen an unexpected change of tack from Angela Merkel when it comes to talk of no-go areas in Germany.
There should not be any no-go zones. There can be no places where nobody dares to go. But these zones exist, and they should be named, and something must be done about it.
Merkel hadn't previously...
Okay, stop. Why is she doing that? Why is she saying that? Roll with me. Roll with me.
We used the incendiary phrase no-go area to describe parts of the country with a high crime rate. But that rate has been going up. The government's own figures released earlier this year point to a 10% rise in violent crime between...
Stop. They finally came out because various individuals and groups in Germany got together and demanded and then sued for those figures to be released because the German government, along with most every other government in Western Europe, they don't want to release those figures about how immigration and refugees, primarily Muslims, have deleteriously affected their very own nation states.
In 2015 and 2016, 90% of which is attributed to young male refugees. There was criticism.
Didn't see that one coming.
Last year of the way the German media covered the refugee crisis. A highly respected group of researchers said that editors acted as public educators and that the whole refugee crisis and the arrival of hundreds of thousands of people was covered in too favourable a light.
Okay, the Zeit Online, which is the Times Online, said, this is a headline, I swear to God, because they're showing it in the video and I have to read it to you because you can't see it. It said, the refugees are a blessing for Germany. Refugee Council trains victims to deal with racism. Education for refugees. That works well. Quicker decisions for refugees. Every second Frankfurt citizen has foreign roots. 50% of the citizens in Frankfurt are foreign. That's a shocking statistic. When a refugee is in love with a German girl.
The only people who had been talking about no-go areas were Alternative for Germany, and they were roundly mocked for doing so.
Imagine that. Only the alternative media in Germany listen carefully to this. Only the alternative media in Germany happened to be telling Germans the truth about what was actually occurring within the boundaries of their nation. Hold that thought. Stop. Do you see any correspondence, perhaps, to what's occurring here in the United States of America? I would submit, yes, it has everything to do with who the establishacks are and the American media maggots. Well, perhaps we should call them the German media maggots. They didn't want this information out.
Can you, as a woman, walk alone on Warschau Street on a weekend evening? Would you dare walk past Warschau or nearby streets? And then they say and make it look like we're the aggressive ones and say bad things about the city. No. What we do is look at things in perspective. What we do is simply address facts, and facts only, ladies and gentlemen.
But here's the thing. In order to secure a ruling coalition, Angela Merkel has been trying to win over the right wing of her conservative alliance.
What did I say? She's trying to win over more people because Angela Merkel herself personally is being affected. When she wasn't personally being affected, she couldn't have given one ragged fuck about the citizens of Germany. Now that she's being personally affected, well, the shoe's on the other foot now, isn't it?
Alliance as she tries to secure that fourth term as Chancellor. And she may well be thinking that taking a step towards the social policy of Alternative for Germany could help get those hardliners back on side with her. Peter Oliver, RT Berlin.
According to local media, it's the bigger cities in Germany that are the worst hit, with criminals taking over entire neighborhoods.
And here are some headlines. Neighborhoods where police scarcely dare to stop. Another headline. Officers are assaulted during routine checks. Here's another headline. Increasing hostility, insults, and violent assaults. Now imagine if this was happening in your city because of refugees. Specifically, let's be blunt, Muslim refugees.
It's not uncommon for police to come under physical assault in such areas, which are reportedly run by ethnic criminal gangs. Political scientist Werner Patzelt says some neighborhoods are no longer recognizable.
It's no longer the case that every person can move freely around just as he or in particular she wants, because
you can't even move around in your own neighborhood. Apply that to your town, your city. You want to go somewhere, but because of refugees, you have a physical fear. You have a fear, a warranted fear, of being assaulted. Now, if you're in your 20s or 30s, okay, some of you may be thinking, fine, bring it on, I'll kick your butt. Yeah, what if you're in your 40s and 50s and 60s and your 70s, and all you want to do is you want to go to the store, all you want to do is just live your life, be quiet, respect other people? That's not happening.
Because we have neighborhoods in cities which look not like being in Germany, but like in a different country. If you look at some cities like the northern parts of Essen or of Dortmund.
Here's another neighborhood newspaper, and here's the headline that you can't see because this is a video. No-go areas in Germany. Even the police don't dare go into these neighborhoods.
Dortmund, like parts of Duisburg, like parts of Berlin. Then for some neighborhoods, it's really a problem. And this truth is not quite welcome. But to be frank on this point, we have the same problem arising out of drug criminality. But immigration is a part of the whole problematic phenomenon.
And how did they get to be criminals in the first place? Oh, that's right, because they didn't and weren't really particularly very interested in fitting in to their particular country. Now multiply this situation that's happening here, because the truth is beginning to be told. Now, let's add Norway. Let's add Sweden. To a degree, let's add Finland, the Netherlands. We could go on and on and on with that. Funny thing is, Eastern Europe, specifically Poland, for example, they ain't going along with this. In that particular article, the chancellor said there are parts of her country police and others fear going into. She argued a zero-tolerance approach to crime must not tolerate such areas. Right. Okay, so like I say, let me throw this out to you. These areas, are they dangerous no-go zones due to Buddhists, Christians, Shinto priests, Catholics? Are there atheist enclaves where dangerous people are afoot? The Illuminati, huh? No. Muslims. Okay. She claimed there are no-go zones in Germany, leaving ministers speechless. This is going in direct conflict with what she was saying. So, as a result of that, I got about 5 more minutes before the end of the show. You can imagine, if you will, the literal pants-shitting hysteria that occurred from the hallowed halls of Brussels when she said this, when she had the temerity to say this, and it went, the hysteria went right over to the Storting in Oslo. There are such areas, and one has to call them by their name and do something about them, she said. Of course, she didn't want to identify very specific areas because, let's be honest, it's embarrassing as hell when you're caught in an abject lie like hers, which is harmful to your very own citizens. Let me point out that virtuous site, Snopes.com, it knows the truth about everything. Just ask it. Snopes indicated that there is no such thing as a no-go zone. rumor several European and American cities have been designated Islamic no-go zones where Sharia law prevails. Claim, rating, false. Really. Mm-hmm. That's another in a continuing series of entries indicating Snopes is about as honorable and truthful as, let's say, an 1800s snake oil salesman, Tammany Hall, or maybe that Boss Tweed guy. I cannot for the life of me figure out how people still refuse to realize that you can jump onto this thingy, that exists today called the internet and find, for example, this little bit of buttery political goodness from the BBC. And this was back in 2010. This is an article that I dug up because I just happened to know about it from 2010, where Angela Merkel said this. Merkel says, German multicultural society has failed. Failed in 2010. Attempts to build a multicultural society in Germany have utterly failed, Chancellor Angela Merkel says. She said the so-called multiculti concept, where people would live side by side happily, did not work in 2010. And immigrants needed to do more to integrate, including learning German. Okay, hold up on that car wash, mister. All right, Angela Merkel hinting that immigrants should learn German and assimilate? Oh, hell no. That's way too judgmental. Unless, even back then, she actually saw a problem. And there was it. That was it. The money shot, okay? The quote. And, of course, the approach to build a multicultural society and to live side by side and to enjoy each other has failed. Utterly failed. And this, of course, is the massive, massive issue in Germany and all of Europe, most all of Europe. Angela Merkel outright lied to Germany and the rest of the European Union about the problem, though she knew the truth about it back in 2010. And she dared to speak about it at that point. Oh, okay, so the first question, well, maybe the final question is, why would Merkel have done this? And I got a couple of more minutes to go. The answer to that is multifaceted, but yet it's still really fundamental. She leans left, okay? That's no great shakes. And like many Germans, she still feels like she has to atone for Germany's role in World War II. She is the quintessential Gaup, guilty, overeducated white person. She feels that pain, okay? Therefore, Germany, and by dint of doing that, okay, the rest of Europe, because the rest of Europe became a dumping ground for all of the refugees from Syria and elsewhere, primarily about 95 to 98% Muslim. All those people have to suffer along with her. She must atone. There has to be penance, and there has to be an accounting. So let's not forget, okay, that what happened is, do you remember she got away? She was awarded Time Magazine's Person of the Year award in 2015 for specifically opening her borders to Syria and to refugee Muslims. In a way, okay, it was a popular concept with Gaups back then, certainly in all those elitist political classes. She also had to, and here's the crux of the biscuit, she also had to compete politically with the other German parties, like the U.S., okay? Leftists like the votes, and others enjoy the cheap labor. And so why did she admit it now? It's all about politics. It's all about politics. She's teetering on the edge, okay? And this is the first time of me playing it, but I've said it many, many times. Frank Underwood in The House of Cards, played by Kevin Spacey, no matter what you think about him, he has an axiom that he's going to tell you about right now.
You've made your point. Have I? I hope so. Such a waste of talent. He chose money over power. In this town, a mistake nearly everyone makes. Money is the McMansion in Sarasota that starts falling apart after 10 years. Power is the old stone building that stands for centuries. I cannot respect someone who doesn't see the difference.
Exactly. So Angela Merkel, she must regain power. She, like politicians, like governments, will lie when those in power benefit. So I leave you with this final thought, because you always need to ask yourself, cui bono?
Monsieur has unlocked!
We'll meet again, don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thank you very much for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct here on the SHR Media Network. You want to contact me? You can find me on Twitter at bzep, my blog, bloviatingzeppelin.net. Promotional consideration by Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And also the Pratt & Whitney Engine Company, Thrust. You can trust. And, of course, thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle 1 refueling team, with whom I will definitely be consorting in less than an hour, perhaps about 40 minutes or so. Thanks ever so much to Dan Butcher. Hope he feels better. Thanks to you for listening. Thanks to you for watching. Thanks for being in chat. A new show of mine coming up. Listen for it, BDR 529. Take care. God bless.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Good night, Jim Bob. Go to sleep.
Good night, and good luck.